My name's attorney Manny Serra. I'm a partner at the Rosen Law Firm, and we're here for you when bad things happen to good people. So the question I get asked a lot is, can you still beat my DUI if I blew over the legal limit or double the legal limit? And the answer to that is absolutely yes. Even actually within the past week, we beat 2 DUIs where the clients blew, unfortunately, double the legal limit. And both of them had different theories of defense. So the first one that we'll talk about is not a trial defense per se, but would be a violation of your rights. Meaning, did an officer have enough probable cause to pull your vehicle over or reasonable suspicion? And if they didn't, then we would suppress all the evidence and the breath test doesn't even ever come in. Another theory of defense would be another legal loophole pre-trial motion would be that the officer did not have enough reasonable suspicion or probable cause to begin a DUI investigation. And if they can't begin a DUI investigation, then the fruit of the poisonous tree, meaning the breath test result that comes thereafter, gets thrown out of the case as well. A next step on a pretrial motion, we're getting nerdy here, right? The next step on a pretrial motion would be, did the officer have enough probable cause or reasonable suspicion to arrest me? And this would be have enough probable cause to arrest me. A lot of people ask all the time, did they have enough reasonable suspicion? Reasonable suspicion doesn't really matter for the arrest. The standard is probable cause. And if a judge determines that there was not enough probable cause to arrest you for the crime of DUI, then it does not matter what the breath test read subsequent to that arrest. Now, those are some of the pretrial motions. There's hundreds that we can get into, but those are some of the big ones. But let's talk about in court. How can we challenge that breath test? The breath test, right? What are you charged with DUI? I'll tell you. When you're charged with DUI, you're charged with being in actual physical control of the vehicle, and at the time of driving, your blood alcohol content or your normal faculties were above the legal limit or impaired if they were your normal faculties. And the key part to that is at the time of driving. So a lot of the times an arrest happens, takes about 25, 40 minutes to do the DUI investigation. You then get arrested and put in the back of the car. You then have to drive down to the police station. There's then a 20-minute observation prior to providing a breath sample to ensure that you don't regurgitate or put anything in your mouth that may affect the breath sample itself. And there's some red tape and paperwork to go through. So you could be providing a breath sample that is collected 2 hours after the time of driving. If the breath is collected 2 hours later, how do we know what it was at the time of driving? For instance, if this had a whole bunch of whiskey in it and I just chugged the whole thing, for about 10 minutes, I'd be okay, right? I'd be dry, get in the car, but at 11, 12, 15, 20-minute hits, and I'd be slurring my words. I wouldn't be able to operate nearly in the fashion that I did before. Maybe an hour later, I'm really feeling it. I'm Gators versus LSU Saturday night type of feeling it. And really that's what the challenge comes to for the state attorney is if we make an allegation of how can you actually prove what the breath was at the time of driving. There's a lot of science and things that get into it, but the state needs to provide an expert witness who's qualified to testify as to that. And without enough information, they may not be able to come to a scientific conclusion as to what your breath was at the time of driving. Now, challenging the breath test on another metric is that, believe it or not, the technology used in that breathalyzer, the intoxilizer, is nothing out of this world, right? We're talking microwave technology. Things that were around this breath test technology since your Razor phone, your BlackBerry way back in the day. How many iPhones have we had since the first iPhone, right? We're on iPhone 11, 12, something like that. And it still messes up all the time. How about COVID? Let's talk about COVID, right? You had all these tests that come back and you had these false positives and false negatives. And when your temperature gets scanned, every time you go into a building, sometimes it reads 95 degrees, 94 degrees. You mean I'm dead? Because that's a low body temperature. Then you scan it again and you're 105 and it doesn't make sense. Technology is not always reliable and it gives false readings. And this intoxilizer machine is not something that's infallible. We're not afraid of breath tests. We love cases with breaths on them because we're not afraid of them and the state attorney thinks they have a case in the bag, right? Oh, I got a breath on this one. We stroll in there and we're ready to rock and roll. And so just be aware that the breath test is not infallible. Your case is not unbeatable because you have a breath test. And don't be scared into taking a plea or giving up on yourself because there was a high breath. Because a high breath does not mean that the case is over. In fact, it provides more issues for us to attack and more for the state attorney to worry about come trial day. In a roundabout way, that's another way to challenge the breath test. What's another way? So breath tests can be challenged a million different ways, guys. Another one would be, was the 20-minute observation period actually conducted and looked at appropriately. We had a DUI down in Miami-Dade County where I had a video of a client actually do something like that, a little bit of a burp, gassy burp in front of the machine, sitting right in front of it. The officer was out doing some paperwork, but the video caught it. Collected the breath samples, they were very high, and we were able to show the state attorney and the judge that this breath is inaccurate because that regurgitation, that burp, that bringing up of fluid can affect someone's breath into the intoxilizer, into the breath machine. So we got that whole breath thrown out and we got a great result on that case. So it can be beat by someone's negligence in failing to observe you properly during that 20-minute observation period. In a long twisting turn of events, a breath test will have, and I can go on for an hour here, but you could probably find some more on our website. Call us in, ask to talk to us if you'd like to. I'd be happy to explain the breath test to you. I'm a nerd for this kind of stuff. Bottom line is, your case is not unbeatable just because you blew above the legal limit.